This is Professor Home again. This is part 2 of our leaves, or part 7 or 8 of our anchor points, I'm not even sure. But for our leaves, we did this, we traced over this leaf. We didn't trace it, but we took the path and converted it and made some edits and made it into this vector path, which we can now use for anything that we want. Now I'm going to take this one step further. I'm just going to scroll up on my page, and here's the other part of the exercise. And I like doing the curves first, then I'll work with these will all be corner points. Notice there's all these sharp change of direction at all these points. So, you know, where this was very rounded in places, this is very sharp. It has sharp ends coming up. So we're going to use the convert tool, not really to change them from being corner points, but actually to have handles so we can kind of control some of these arcs on it. So they almost like the bat wings that we worked on with the Halloween project. So I'm going to start with this, and again, I'll start at one place and start working my way around. Now with this one, I'm going to jump out. I'm not going to work on every single point because I may not need a handle working from every single point. Just for example, up here, if I have a handle coming out, pulling my curve out this way, I may not need another handle controlling that, and you'll see what I mean when I get started. I'm going to take my convert tool. There's my convert tool, and I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to drag in. And you can see it's bending that in. Now every time I do that, it's going to make the other side kind of bubble out. And what I want to do is use my convert tool and just kind of bring that back in. And I'm going to skip over this one, and I'm going to come to the next one, and I'm going to kind of make it a very shallow. I'm going to make it a curve first, and that one I'm going to leave alone. And I'm going to skip over, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to kind of look at the back end. I'm looking at this end right here, dipping down into that leaf. Now this end that's bowing out, I'm just going to bring it back in and just pull the handle so it gets close to that. Remember, we can edit these later. Again, I'm going to skip over this one and move over to the next one. And I'm going to drag that down. So I'm kind of looking backwards, and then the forward one, I'm just editing. So this is where I'm doing the convert. I drug out the handle to make a curve point, but now when I bend this back, this is what converts it into a corner point. And I'm going to skip over this, because if you start dragging, you don't need a handle here and a handle here to control this path. So that's really not necessary. I'm going to undo that. That's why we're kind of skipping over some of these. So that curve is fine. So I'm just going to move here. I'm just going to drag this in one direction just to kind of arch it a little bit underneath. And then again, I'm going to skip this point, go to this one. Now that this leaf is curled up, this is an actual scan of a leaf. So it's kind of curled up. And I'm just going to drag whatever direction you go in. You might have to drag just to see. I'm going to kind of bend it down, very similar to the other one. And I'm looking at, you know, this arc right here. And then this one, which is bubbling out, I'm just going to bend back and try to follow this shape right here. So again, skip this one. I'm going to drag straight up, bend around, bring that back path to follow where I'm at. And the forward path is always going to be a little off because it's a curve. So it's going in the opposite direction, and then bend back. Now you don't always have to bend back. You can always bring the handle back in towards the point. If it's a real shallow arch, which that is, it's very shallow, you don't need much of a handle at all. So I'm just going to bend that back, and I'm going to skip over this one again. A lot of these we can skip over. And I'm just going to, you can see every time I drag, I'm almost dragging the wrong direction. That's okay. Here I have too much of an arc, so I'm going to shorten that line. And I'm even going to zoom in a little bit to finish this off. Now again, I'm going to skip over this path, and I'm going to drag this one. Now you can see when I did that, it messed up my first one, but that's okay. So I'm pulling that down, and then I'm grabbing this one. You see, I don't need two long handles here because it's a kind of shallow path. So I'm just going to bring it up towards, you know, back up towards the tip of my leaf. And this, now that I'm done with this, I have all my points converted. I could use my direct selection tool, and as long as I'm working in this area here, I'll just work on bending that down a little, bringing this up, bending this down. This is where I could go around and just tweak a little bit. You know, I could shorten some handles. This one I could see it needs to dip more into here, so I'm just going to lengthen that handle, pull down, and I don't need another handle here. Same thing here with this handle. Just bend it, pull this down. This handle looks okay. Over here I could go in a little bit I'm not sure where this leaf would end up. Dragging that in a little bit. And again, there's only so much I could show here. This does take a little bit of practice. I'm going to bend this one down a little bit to kind of get that. But that's pretty much my shape. Now, just like I did with the other one, I could fill that with a color. Maybe use a different, I'll use a green and a gold, or maybe a green and a light green. Not quite changing colors yet. Still kind of more of a summer kind of color. And use my gradient tool and just take it off center a little bit, just so it has a little bit of look to it. Again, I didn't put stems on either one of these, but that's all I just wanted to do, was just practice tracing over. And again, we'll learn how to just use the pen tool to trace and make those points, but what I'm focusing on, both of these, was this one we were focusing on using the curve points, manipulating them. This one we're focusing on using the corner points, getting these scallop kind of edges here, almost these bat wing kind of shapes.